There's a running joke that if you want to know where any city's ghetto is, just find Martin Luther King Boulevard. But that wasn't always the case in Savannah. MLK, extending from Bay Street to Exchange Street, was once a corridor of thriving black neighborhoods and businesses called West Broad Street. It was our Black Wall Street. There was even a black-owned bank, originally called the Wage Earners Bank. Opened in 1914, it was one of the most gainful banks owned and operated by black people in the country by 1920, with customers in almost every state making deposits. It was also the first black bank to accumulate over $1 million in assets. W.E.D. Du Bois, in his Crisis magazine, said it helped more Negro business ventures to success than any other Negro bank. West Broad Street reflected community. Sticking together wasn't limited to open your doors to family members or looking out for your neighbor's churn. It was also supporting one another's entrepreneurial endeavors. Black people gave each other places of community, yeah, but also safety and economic support. We usually read about togetherness of black folk during this era and compare it to how far off we are from that today, but it's important to understand that unity in those days was damn near not an option. Either you couldn't shop with white businesses at all, or you weren't respected there. In one of my favorite books, Coming Full Circle, Wanda Lloyd Smalls talk about how businesses on West Broad Street were places where black people could spend their money with dignity, which was not always the case on Broughton Street, the busy promenade where blacks often were not allowed to work behind the counter or try on hats before they brought them, or have change put in our hands instead of dropped on the counter. On Broughton Street, black people couldn't eat at lunch counters or expect respect for the dollars we spent. West Broad Street was thus our world. And every city had a Black Wall Street. The cities with a bunch of black folk in it, that is. And most of them ended the same way, too. But before we get into that, here's a list of names for the Black Wall Street in some other cities. Greenwood Avenue in Tulsa, Claiborne Avenue in New Orleans, Water Street in Columbus, Ohio, 7th Street in Oakland, Paris Street in Durham, U Street in D.C., Rondo Avenue in St. Paul, Minnesota, 9th Street in Chattanooga, Avenue G in Miami, Florida Avenue in Jacksonville, Hastings Street in Detroit, East 12th Street in Austin, Texas. And most of them ended the same way. An interstate cut through the main street, displacing homes and businesses. And in 1963 in Savannah, residents and entrepreneurs on West Broad Street were ordered to leave by the city of Savannah for the construction of I-16 and the housing projects Caton and Fraser Homes. Although the interstate arrived in the 1960s and immediately uprooted many residents, the businesses didn't leave as quickly. They hung around for about another 25 years. And today, all of those businesses on Savannah's Black Wall Street, only one of them from those days still remain on the same street. And here's why we need to know this, because ain't nothing new under the sun. Ain't old folks say that? Well, the problems we encounter ain't necessarily new, and the approaches to these problems might not be new, but the technologies are. Take social media and e-commerce, for example. We've always had means of getting in touch with each other and creating marketplaces, but doing it as fast and as far-reaching as the internet is new. We can't stop change. According to Octavia Butler, God is change. It's inevitable. But you can be in relationship with change, get to know it through history. So if this has happened and continues to happen to our brick and mortar spaces, how might it happen to the digital spaces we created to connect with each other and circulate our coins? And how can we get ahead of this problem?